we would always give them an objective benchmark, an objective measure of how they measured up. And a lot of times that wasn't easy to take.
Right.
But we would also talk about the building blocks they had for excellence.
BusinessJournalDaily.com 3 Minutes With is brought to you by Farmers National Bank.
Save, borrow, and invest with Farmers. Take heart knowing you're helping create a strong community. Mind your money at Farmers. Talk directly to local decision makers about your loans, investments, and insurance. Farmers. Fiercely local, fiercely loyal.
Well, while I was at Goodrich, they started involving me in customer visits, and I solved plant problems, not just at our plant, but we licensed technology. And so I would go to plants around the world and help customers solve the problems. And then that led to more and more commercial responsibility. And then my vice president said, you need to go get an MBA. And I said, an MBA, that's just math, that's arithmetic. I have a Ph.D. in chemistry. I don't want to do that. And he said, now, again, at Goodrich, they would ask you once, and the second time you either did it or off you go. So I said, oh, okay, I'm going. And they said, go to UH Clear Lake. I said, nope, I'm going to go to Rice. So I went to Rice, got an MBA, really fell in love with the business world. I think you were talking to one of your guests, Drew, and you talked about
Pharisee.
Yeah, he talked about the importance of accounting.
Right, yeah.
You talked about it too.
Yeah.
I mean, the old George would have hated to say it, but one of the most important things I ever learned was accounting. Yeah. How does it work? How does a corporation work? So I really got into finance. So, and while I was there, management consultants asked the faculty, hey, do you have any students we ought to talk to? And I never went to the career center or anything, but they put the word out that, you ought to talk to George. So I talked to every management consulting firm you could mention, and what I really liked about that opportunity was solving a diversity of problems,
Yep.
because in a plant, you're solving the problems that are at the plant.
Right.
What management consulting offered me, what Deloitte offered me, was more fields of exploration, more problems to solve. I always tell people, I'm still an R&D scientist. I'm just looking for new problems to solve, new things to learn.
And a lot more teams. So you got to go.
Oh, yes.
Once you became a consultant, you got to have a bunch of teams.
Yeah, and now you're working with people. You get hired by some management person at a client. Well, that team you're going to work with probably really doesn't want to work with you.
Right.
The last thing they want, they're like, oh, great.
Right.
Here comes George the consultant.
So how do you win over that team? Because that's a great one.
Once again, you've got to know something they don't know. I always tell my people, when you go to work for a client, you have to tell them two things about their business that they don't know about their business. Not two things that they don't know, but two things about their business. Real insight that they don't have about their business. If you can do that, then they'll say, maybe somebody to listen to. Yeah. The second thing, again, is be humble. Don't fit the stereotype.
Yeah.
Don't come in and act arrogant and, be an authentic human being.
I always felt that as I watched coaches take over programs, that the ones that went in and started saying that everything that was wrong had a harder time than the coaches that went in and said, hey, we want to build on the excellence that's been here before us. And oh, by the way, we have some ideas how we can get better, but it wasn't the attitude of everything you've done before before I arrived, was no good.
Right. Now that is really important. And not all consultants do that, by the way. A lot of them, it's like, you're terrible, you're terrible,
Right.
you're terrible.
Right.
What we would do is we would always give them an objective benchmark, an objective measure of how they measured up. And a lot of times that wasn't easy to take.
Right.
But we would also talk about the building blocks they had for excellence. And I never walked into a situation, never in my life have I walked in a situation where I've said, this is hopeless.
Right.
Burn down the house.
Right.
No.
We're cleaning house.
No.
Right.
Never. Yeah. I've always been able to work with the people, whether it was in a corporation or consulting situation, and be able to make it work.
Well, we had a phrase we used all the time with our teams, and I had a huge table here at YSU when I was president. Right in the middle of it, it was a Latin phrase, an imperative statement, "Macte virtute."
Yep.
And it simply meant increase your excellence. So when you go into a place, my opinion always was, there's been a level of excellence here. My job is to increase the excellence. And if there's something I can add to it, and that to me, as I sit and think about a consultant role, that might be one of the most important things that to get the buy-in of the people you're trying to help is make sure that they don't think you think they're terrible.
Yep. And so when I started my own company, one of my things that I did with my co-founder, Bill Poston, was we said we're going to have a values-driven company. And one of our values was we are the leaders behind the leaders. So what I always told the people I worked with is, I'm here to make you better. I'm not here to make you look bad. I'm here to make you look better. I'm going to celebrate your promotion as if it was mine.
BusinessJournalDaily.com. 3 Minutes With is brought to you by Farmers National Bank.
Save, borrow, and invest with Farmers. Take heart knowing you're helping create a strong community. Mind your money at Farmers. Talk directly to local decision makers about your loans, investments, and insurance. Farmers. Fiercely local, fiercely loyal.